In the first place, the office of the President of the United States appears to me to be clothed with such powers as are dangerous. It's Anti-Federalist and Old Whig, November 1st, 1787, an excerpt from the Philadelphia Independent Gazetteer. To be the fountain of all honors in the United States, Commander-in-Chief of the Army, Navy, and Militia, with the power of making treaties and of granting pardons, and to be vested with an authority to put a negative upon all laws unless 2/3 of both houses shall persist in enacting it, and put their names down by calling upon the yeas and nays for that purpose is, in reality, to be a king, as much a king as the King of Great Britain, and a king, too, of the worst kind, an elective king. An elective king is worse than a king? I guess so, because nobody could see that the motherfucker is a king. Here we have another. James Monroe. See, there are two ways of securing this point. Let's get right back to this. So we're talking about the Electoral College. In the Electoral College, you have Cornel West, who is running Green Party. Now, he can win with just a couple of Electoral College votes. I'll just go ahead and explain it in, simple as much as I can. Simplify it as much as I can. So Cornel West, let's say he wins Alaska. He gets 3 executive, right? They got three electoral college votes. So Cornel West wins Alaska. This is just like in 2016. Now Donald's going to beat Hillary, but if Donald and Hillary were both deprived of a majority, and you have to have an absolute majority, plurality is not good enough. You got to have an absolute majority. An absolute majority means over 270. So if Hillary and Donald only got 269, neither one of them got an absolute majority in 2016. That would trigger a contingent election. And then the contingent election would go to the House of Representatives, and they would vote by state delegation. So 26 of the 50 states would have to vote. It would be by delegation, which gives more power to the small states. But Cornel West could win if he was Colin Powell. Colin Powell had 3 electoral college votes. So when it goes to the House of Representatives and they say, well, who are the 3 highest electoral college vote getters? Well, it would have been Donald, it would have been Hillary, and it would have been Colin Powell. The House of Representatives would have had to vote for Colin Powell. And sometimes these ballots could go on, like first, third, fourth, fifth ballot or some shit. A lot of times you want to win the first or second ballot, but it could go on and on. Meaning what? Mean that eventually the people of the United States, the House of Representatives, could be like, okay, Donald, Hillary, Hillary, Donald, Donald, Hillary. They could do that shit 3, 4, 5 times. And then they're like, you know what? We got Colin Powell. Colin Powell would be better than both of these 2 fucking assholes. Let's just dump the 2 fucking party system and get Colin Powell in there. And that's how Cornel West could win. Colin Powell got 3 electoral college votes from the state of Washington. The other ones got 1, 1, 1, and 1. So all Cornel West has to do is get 3 electoral college votes and deprive the 2 major parties of 270 electoral college votes. If he deprives both of the 2 major parties of a majority, an absolute majority, and he gets himself enough electoral college votes to be in 3rd place, that triggers the House contingent election where it's state delegation. So it's not going to go just by House, Republican, Democrat, because each one of the states will have to vote amongst themselves who they want. So Alaska has 3 electoral college voters. They'd have to get together, 2 or 3 or all 3 of them, however they want to figure it out. They'd have to decide who the state of Alaska, instead of passing 3 votes out, they'll pass 1 vote out. And you got 50 states. D.C., even though D.C. has 3 electoral college voters, they don't get a vote in the House contingent election because it's up to the states. And memorize your words. Memorize the Electoral College, the Constitution. We have the rules down here for a reason. The 12th Amendment is going to change the Electoral College rules. The first 4 presidential elections was Article 2, Section 1, Clause 3. But after 1801, from 1804 till today, the 12th Amendment has been governing the presidential elections. So from 1804 till today, they've governed every single presidential election the 12th Amendment has. So the contingent election, they changed it. The 12th Amendment, it was just the top 5, and then they lowered it to top 3. And then the Senate does the vice presidential race, but the contingent election is still there. if neither one of them has a majority, and you have to have an absolute majority, not just a plurality, meaning if there's 10 electors and 4 of them voted for your guy and everybody else has lower than 4, he hasn't won. A majority is over 5. You got 10, so that means 6 people have to vote. If you don't get a majority of the 10, there is no winner. It goes to the House of Elections, or the House of Representatives, for the contingent election. You got 50 states plus D.C. D.C. has electoral college votes, but it's not a state, so it would be up to the 50 states. And 25 and 50 is half. Half of 50 is 25, so to be a majority, you'd have to have 26. So the 23rd Amendment just adds D.C. to the mix. We've had 3 contingent elections throughout our history. There's something about 1877, so I think there's the threat of a contingent election. The 1801 I'm going to skip because that was the old rules, but that was Thomas Jefferson versus Aaron Burr. And then you had 1825 and 1837. And 1837 was the vice presidents, which I'm going to, just talk real quick, is the Senate. The Senate, the Virginia's electors refused to vote for Richard Mentor Johnson for the vice president, and so they had a contingent for the vice presidency. It went to the Senate, and he was, overwhelmingly won. So just Virginia, we're throwing a tantrum. I guess it's Martin Van Buren. We don't like your vice president. They withheld their votes. It triggered the House contingent election, and then it went to, even though they lost, they made history. They made history because the only other time is going to be 1825, and that's a corrupt bargain. That's Henry Clay and William H. Crawford, Andrew Jackson, and John Quincy Adams. So future contingent elections are going to be by the incoming Congress, and it used to be the outgoing Congress. That matters because you're going to have like the people that's been in there for 2 years running the election, or you're going to have a bunch of new people that's coming in. And now the way that things are set up, it would be a bunch of new people who's coming in that would have the House contingent, the contingent election for the presidency. So you must get absolute majority, and then the House will choose the top 3 electoral college vote getters, the top 3. So we as Americans, we need the president that we need, not the president that we deserve. A lot of people keep saying, oh, well, they just get the president that they deserve. And in a way, maybe that these are the fucking presidents we deserve. But we need the presidents that we need. America's, the greatest country in the world. We need to have the greatest man or woman at the top of the ticket. The greatest person in America should be running America. The smartest, most intelligent, charismatic, what the fuck ever, the greatest person. But instead, it's like the most politically savvy, the people that hang around the lobby the longest. I'm not for sure exactly what the president ought to act under the strongest impulses of rewards and punishments, which are the strongest incentives to human actions. There are 2 ways of securing this point. He ought to depend on the people of America for his appointment and continuance in office. He ought also to be responsible in an equal degree to all the states, and to be tried by dispassionate judges. His responsibility ought further to be direct and immediate. Let us consider in the first place then how far he is dependent on the people of America. He is to be elected by electors in a manner perfectly dissatisfactory to my mind. I believe that he will owe his election, in fact, to the state governments and not to the people at large. It is to be observed that Congress have it in their power to appoint the time of choosing the electors and of electing the president. Is it not presumable they will appoint the times of choosing the electors and electing the president at a considerable distance from each other so as to give an opportunity to the electors to form a combination if they know that such a man as they wish, for instance, the actual president, cannot possibly be elected by a majority of the whole number of electors appointed, yet if they can prevent the election by such majority of any one they disapprove of, and if they can procure such a number of votes as will be sufficient to make their favorite one of the 5 highest on the list, they may ultimately carry the election into the General Congress, where the votes in choosing him shall be taken by states, each state having 1 vote. Let us see how far this is compatible with the security of republicanism. Although this state is to have 10 and Massachusetts 8 representatives, and Delaware and Rhode Island are to have but 1 each, yet the votes are to be by states only. The consequence will be that a majority of the states, and these consisting of the smallest, may elect him. This will give an advantage to the small states. He will depend, therefore, on the states for his re-election and continuance in office, not on the people? Does it not bear the complexion of the late Confederation? He will conduct himself in accommodation to them, since by them he is chosen and may be again. So they're criticizing, saying that it's the people. The people supposed to choose the president, and yet we're going to have the states if it goes to the thing. So they're kind of criticizing it, but it tells you that I'm telling you the damn truth. I'm telling you the truth. So there's a couple more passages I wanted to get on that. That's June 18th, 1788. It's addressed to Mr. James Madison. I'm not for sure exactly who is speaking there. So we've got the general idea. Cornel West wins Alaska. He gets their 3 electoral college votes. Neither one of the two, they're so close that they don't win an outright majority. Or let's say he wins more than just 3. Let's say that he takes not just, Alaska's 3 votes. Let's say he takes all the 3 voters. He takes South Dakota, he takes Delaware, and he takes Alaska. So he's got these 3 tiny states in Vermont. Let's say 4 tiny states. That's all. That's, 4 times 3, that's 12 electoral college votes, Vermont, but they're the whole state. They're the whole state. So Hawaii, Vermont, Hawaii's 4 votes, Vermont's 3 votes, Delaware's 3, whatever. You get the point, right? You get the point. North Dakota's 3. So you have Cornel West. He wins 20 electoral college votes, let's just say. He wins 20 electoral college votes. He's able to, what's a yellow spider? Are yellow spiders, are they poisonous? That's not normal, is it? Yellow spider? I'm just going to put that bag over there. 3 contingent elections, 1801, 1825. Let's talk about the only one in history that actually, how's this going to break down? So this is the new rules with the 12th Amendment, 1825. Andrew Jackson basically won. He won the plurality, so that most of the people voted for him, and then most of the electoral college votes went to him. But guess what? He didn't have an absolute majority. Out of 10 people, you need 6. If he only has 4, and he beats everybody else, but he doesn't have 6, he doesn't have the absolute majority. So you have to have the absolute majority. So this is, this just happened, so you don't even really need the spoiler candidate. But, you have John Quincy Adams, Henry Clay, and William H. Crawford. Henry Clay is going to get knocked out. Top 3, William H. Crawford versus John Quincy Adams, Andrew Jackson. Henry Clay supports John Quincy Adams. Adams nominates Henry Clay for Secretary of State. They call this a corrupt bargain. So this is 4 candidates. John Quincy Adams is going to become the president. Why? Because of the House contingent election. Andrew Jackson thought he won. He had the plurality. He had most of the people. He had most of the electoral college votes on his side at first. But after the House contingent election, John Quincy Adams was the victor, and therefore John Quincy Adams. Andrew Jackson didn't know the Constitution good enough. He didn't know about that House contingent, that runoff election that could be triggered if there's not an outright absolute majority. So Henry Clay, William H. Crawford, Andrew Jackson, John Quincy Adams. That's remarkable. Andrew Jackson seemed like he was going to fucking win. John Quincy Adams just pulled a constitutional fucking trick. And he got the votes. And therefore became president. And thank God. I'd rather have John Quincy Adams better than, more so than goddamn Andrew Jackson. So you got to get 20 of the 56 states. We need the president that we need, not the president that we deserve. Let's see here. The U.S. Constitution, the exact words, and then the history. We had that one time, the corrupt bargain, 1820, something about 1877, but I think it was just a threat. And then we have the U.S. Constitution, let's see, clauses on the Electoral College. So, resistance to tyranny is obedience to God. Resistance to tyranny is obedience to God. You're allowed to have a revolution as long as it's not repugnant to the U.S. Constitution. So, being pro-constitutions, pro-elections, pro-Bill of Rights, pro-rule of law, federalism, rule of law, 3 branches of government. These are not repugnant to the U.S. Constitution. They're very much consistent with the U.S. Constitution, federalism, elections, rule of law, constitutionalism, Bill of Rights, and the 3 branches of government. So we got a couple sections in the body of the Constitution, and then you got that 12th Amendment. The 12th Amendment really governs the whole thing. The 12th Amendment governs the whole thing, and it's pretty simple to understand. You have Hillary and Donald. Neither one of them wins 270. That triggers a House contingent election. They do the top 3 vote getters. That's Hillary, Donald, and Colin Powell. And then Colin Powell is victorious. I'm saying replace Colin Powell with Cornel West. Or John Quincy Adams, right? Our Cornel West could be John Quincy Adams. But you can't have a plurality. And fuck hereditary secession. Thomas Jefferson said that we needed a revolution every 20 years, so that means we're like over 200 years late, America. Resistance to tyranny is obedience to God. Why did Abraham Lincoln, there was a black man who went down to his knees, thank you, Lincoln, for giving us our rights, and he says, get up. I didn't give you your freedoms and rights. God gave them to you. And me as an atheist, I understand that. He's saying that it came from nature. You had your rights and freedoms already bestowed to you before Lincoln was born. When peaceful revolution is impossible, violent revolution is inevitable. Injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. Injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. All for one, one for all. D'Artagnan, let's see, MLK still lives. Fred Hampton forever. So we got some criticisms here. They're sitting there saying that it's dependent on the states. If the House contingent election, that's what the Federalist, anti-Federalist things were saying. They were saying that the president has to be tied to the vote, the will of the people. But if the runoff election goes to the House, that means the Congress is going to get to choose the presidency. And that's precisely what happened with John Quincy Adams. The Congress chose the presidency. Now, that doesn't happen as often or as frequent as the criticizer had said that it could happen. But it does make sense that it goes to the states and not to the people. It goes to the states in a weird way. Each state gets one vote, so each House delegation has to vote for the one. The total number of electors in the Electoral College is the total number of House and Senate reps. Maine and Nebraska, they have proportional. They do by district. So Cornel West could theoretically win 1 or 2 Electoral College votes from Maine and Nebraska. So you could have a tiny state, Electoral College strategy. Just go after Utah and Alaska and North Dakota. Just pick 3 states, get 10 or so Electoral College votes. You'll, trash all the rest of the candidates out there, the third party or independents. And as long as you're third place, when that House, contingent, and the more votes that you get, the more that you deprive them of a majority. So once you got 10 votes, now you're a contender. Now you're a player. Now they're going to watch. You could be the kingmaker, or you could use that little bit of wedge that you got and become the king. You got 10 Electoral College votes, but can you get more? Can you win California? Can you win New York? And if you can win the majority, well then shit, you don't even have to get a House contingent election. You don't even have to play John Quincy Adams tricks. And we got 50 states, 14 colonies, and 900 military bases, so that's 50 states. And it doesn't include D.C., and it doesn't include the colonies or the military bases. And the small states have the power. You got 50 states, so all you need is 26 of the 50 states. Yep, California gets a vote, New York gets a vote, but, so does Rhode Island, and so does South Carolina and South Dakota and Washington. So, small states, the ones that aren't populated as much. So that is, it goes to the states. It goes to the states. So the way Cornel West can win, he just has to do 2 things. Get a hold of a whole bunch of Electoral College votes, a handful, 10 of them, 3 to 10, maybe 20. But if he can get a handful of Electoral College votes, deprive the 2 of the majority 270, then he gets, to be a part of the top 3 of the House contingent election. Mr. William Grayson, Mr. Chairman, one great objection with me is this. If we advert to the democratical, aristocratical, or executive branch, we will find their powers are perpetually varying and fluctuating throughout the whole. Perhaps the democratic branch would be well constructed were it not for this defect. The executive is still worse in this respect than the democratic branch. He is to be elected by a number of electors in the country, but the principle has changed. When no person has a majority of the whole number of electors appointed, or when more than one have such a majority and have an equal number of votes, for then the lower house is to vote by states. It is thus changing throughout the whole. It seems rather founded on accident than any principle of government I ever heard of. The number of electors is equal to the number of representatives and senators, vis-a-vis 91. They are to vote for two persons. They give therefore 182 votes. Let there be 45 votes for 4 different candidates and 2 for the president. He is one of the 5 highest, but if he have but 2 votes, which he may easily purchase in this case, by the 3rd clause of the 1st section of the 2nd article, the election is to be by the representatives, according to the states. A majority of the whole number of electors is necessary to elect the president. It is not the greatest number of votes that is required, but a majority of the whole number of electors. If there be more than one having such majority and an equal number, one of them is to be chosen by ballot of the House of Representatives. But if no one has a majority of the actual number of electors appointed, how is he to be chosen? From the 5 highest on the list, 3 highest now, by ballot of the lower house, the House of Reps, and the votes to be taken by states, I could see if he ought to be chosen from the 2 highest on the list. This would be simple and easy. Then indeed the people would have some agency in the election, but when it is extended to the 5 highest, a person having a very small number of votes may be elected. This will almost constantly happen. The states may choose the man in whom they have most confidence. This is, in my opinion, a very considerable defect. The people will in reality have no hand in this election. Difficulties would arise from the extended population of the states. Instead of this, the people choose the electors. This can be done with ease and convenience and will render the choice more judicious. As to the eventual voting by states, it has my approbation. The lesser states and some large states will be generally pleased by that mode. The deputies from the small states argued, and there is some force in their reasoning, that when the people voted, the large states evidently had the advantage over the rest, and without varying the mode, the interest of the little states might be neglected or sacrificed. Here is a compromise. For in the eventual election, the small states will have the advantage. In so extensive a country, it is probable that many persons will be voted for, and the lowest of the 5 highest on the list may not be so inconsiderable as he supposes. With respect to the possibility that a small number of votes may decide his election, I do not know how, nor do I think that a bare calculation of possibility ought to govern us. One honorable gentleman, William Grayson, has said that the eastern states may in the eventual election choose him, but in the extravagant calculation he has made, he's been obliged to associate North Carolina and Georgia with the 5 smallest northern states. There can be no union of interest or sentiments between states so differently situated. 46 is a majority of 91 and will suffice to elect the president. 46 is half. 46 is half. So that means Cornel West could become the president. Cornel West could become the president just like anybody else, and actually by adding more people, more conversations, that's better for democracy. And to have a badass fucking candidate. Okay, you got dipshit, doobie-doo, and dooey-doo. You know, dipshit number 1 and fucking douchebag number 2. Have some badasses. Have some fucking, goddamn legends. I wish we had Jesse the Body Ventura and Nader in there, and Jill Stein, and Cynthia McKinney. I wish we had about 20 more candidates. There's 330 million people in America. Yeah, we're going to talk about Joe versus Donald again? Goddamn, America. If you could dream it, you can do it. Apparently, we don't dream that fucking big. Apparently, we can only dream of incrementalism as a goddamn nation. Well, let's, as a nation, barely fucking move. For once in my life, let's actually have a goddamn president that fucking matters. We know that the Democrat ain't gonna do shit. We know the Republican isn't gonna do shit. No matter what we fucking vote for, nothing fucking changes. Let's vote for a candidate that's gonna change some shit. And we all fucking love it. Cornel West, he's got enough spirituality for all of us. And thank goodness for Cornel West. Because we do need a spiritual awakening. And when I think about a legend, right, you need The Rock, you need, goddamn Matt Damon. You need, some big timer up on the fucking throne. Because to the rest of the world, it seems like Biden is like Is he more intellectually superior or something? Because he's none of those things. He's not the best that we got. We should put the best that we got at the top. Because that's what, take me to your leader? Okay, Albert Einstein, that's our fucking leader. No, we thought about it and we need smart fucking people to run this shit. So we went ahead and put Albert Einstein as the goddamn Oppenheimer. Edward Snowden. Edward Snowden is the new president. You gotta have a badass at the fucking top. And sorry, Marianne and Bobby Jr. I love the Kennedys. And, Elon and the rest. We need to fast forward past Donald and Joe, which is so embarrassing that we're not even there yet. But we need a badass at the fucking top. We need a badass at the top. Chris Christie, I don't know, Mike Pence, these are political, they've been around forever. So who do we need at the top? We need the smartest fucking guy, the smartest scientist in America who loves America the most. And I'm not sure who that exactly is, but that's essentially that's the demographics. That's the makeup of what we need. The one that can do bench press. Arnold Schwarzenegger, who could do more bench presses. The one who could do, throw a javelin the farthest. The one who can jump over the most. The one who can lift up the most cars. American Ninja Warrior. That's who the winner of the American Ninja Warrior. We need a fucking badass. We need a person that gets up there and that can pull the rest of the Congress and the nation along with their goddamn decisions. And it is about the vision. Cornel West says it's about the vision. It's about the vision overall. You can get the specific details underneath, but you got to have somebody that so loves America and wants us to progress and move forward. God damn, a fucking lying blowhard pile of shit, a motherfucking Politico piece of shit. Let's have a badass. Let's have a fucking American badass at the helm. That makes more sense. Why do we keep on electing these douchebags? 330 million people. We're the greatest country in the world. Then we should have better leadership. They're fossils too. All these old ass fossils. So Cornel West for president.